Well, good evening all. Very warm welcome back to King's Home ahead of another season. The eve of the season is upon us next week. Alex, we'll start with you. It's been a busy summer on and off the field. Did you want to give a little bit of an update on what's been going on?
Of course, and firstly, welcome. As Tim said, it's great to have you all here, some of us in the lovely new shirt. What's the feelings on the new shirt? Do we like it? Do we hate it? Okay, probably not a question to ask straight off the bat. I'll leave that one. But obviously, just sort of looking back at last season, I think it's fair to say that there were some highs and some big lows. Over the course of the off-season, I wrote and spoke about us doing a review about our season, and we did that over the course of the off-season, and George will dig into the detail a little bit about where we got to with that. But I think from my side, it's fair to say that we reflected on the Premiership League, and it was one of frustration because we didn't show ourselves and represent ourselves in the way we should or could, and we didn't give you much entertainment here either. It's fair to say that we were over pragmatic with the way we played, and we can't do that. That's not what we want to do. It doesn't excite our coaches, it doesn't excite our players, and it certainly doesn't excite you. So we want you to come here and enjoy it and to feel proud about your rugby club. So it's been a busy off-season, and I think that the way the team are playing, we spoke about them entertaining. I think that Friday's game, I don't know whether any of you saw Friday's game, but it really showed signs of exactly what we're all about, or what we're going to be all about. And we're looking forward to having everyone back here at King's Home for the game against Saracens. So, yeah, it's been a busy but eventful off-season.
Thanks, Alex. And George, moving to you. Alex touched on it there, but this entertaining game plan that we're talking about, obviously that takes a significant amount of work. It doesn't just happen. So can you give a little bit of an insight into perhaps what's changed behind the scenes, or what you've been working on during pre-season ahead of next week?
A big part of moving the game plan on is the recruitment we did last year. I think one of the things we've had is very young halfbacks in position, and we've got some brilliant young halfbacks, but they are young. So a lot of Premiership games, particularly at the start of last year, we were probably tactically less astute, less experienced, if you like. And that hurt us a couple of times. So bringing Thomas and Gareth in, not only what they do on the field, but we're hoping the young talent that we've got, which we've got really high aspirations for, will feed off them, learn off them. I think it's a lesson learnt for us. Probably it's one thing showing clips, talking about it, walking it through, but actually having some senior bodies who've been there, done it to that level, hopefully will pay dividends. But I think what those guys coming in, and players like Charlie Atkinson, who's right at the start of his journey, but he's a real ball player. I think it puts us in a position to push the game on. As Brownie said, we took we actually played some good rugby at the start of last year, but we lost a lot of bodies early on, and obviously we made the decision to strip it back a little bit. Which again wasn't exciting for any of us, but it was the most pragmatic approach to try and get some results at that moment in time. But I think we go into this season with a really energised group. Thomas and Gareth coming in, just being that fulcrum between whether they're playing or not. That is, and that's you can already see the young guys feeding off that, and that just allows us to free it up. And Wadey on the wing, we think him, Thorlo, Josh, some of those young guys, we put them in space. There's a real opportunity to play. So, we're confident. We've put the nuts and bolts in place. It's not going to be perfect, like you say. It's going to be a growth for us. We know what our identity was probably 12 months ago, and it was pretty hard edged, but we knew we had to layer on top of that. And last season didn't go the way we wanted with that, but I think we're going to stick to it this year, and we're all excited about it. And the players have got right behind it, as well as training really hard. And I think the beauty of Friday night, it's only a pre-season game, but our attack looked very good, but our D was ferocious. Our set piece was very, very tough, and I think again we're not getting too excited about the context of the game, but the attitude that we saw was outstanding, and I think that's a good starting point for us.
And lads, from a playing perspective, what can you say about the environment this pre-season that might feel a little bit different?
from day one, we were out there attacking, playing with the ball. It was exciting, smiles on faces. You know, there's a lot of touches of the ball. Whereas, you know, as both guys said, probably middle of last year, we ended up, you know, chasing a lot of kicks because that was the way to get us down the pitch. And I think everyone plays rugby for a reason. You know, you like having the ball in your hands, you like playing, and that was seen straight away, and that's rolled through and rolled through to Friday night as well.
From your point of view, new faces coming in this season. Obviously, we spoke about Gareth and Thomas and Christian, who's in the room today. How have those guys settled in, and what have they added?
Yeah, there's been everyone that's come in, whether that's young boys, old boys, they've come in and added something. Like Skivs was saying with Thomas and Gareth, they've got that experience around the place. Obviously, Wadey's experiences of where he's been around the world and what he's done is something that adds to everyone, and it's just almost like that fresh energy that people bring in. And especially, you know, we lost a big character in Johnny last year. I think Wadey's done a pretty good job so far of filling in that weird character that we've got, which he's pretty good at that. But no, it's been great so far, and you know, the couple of times we've been able to get together as a squad and do a few bits, have a few beers, have some food. It's been good, and as sort of 35 blokes, it's been getting on really well, and that was proven in Cork at the weekend.
Before we let this panel go, should we open the floor to some questions?
We often, you know, everybody here is members, so we're here most weeks and what have you, however many thousands of us there are, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to get your 7,000, 8,000, whatever it is, through the gates. To get to the 16,500 that you've got here, how do you see that pricing structure to get more people through the gate? Obviously, it's going to be beneficial to, you know, through the bar, people spending money here. Obviously, that makes the sustainability side, but it also adds a huge atmosphere. You know, having 16,000 here every week, as opposed to having quite often, which we had, you know, 10, 11,000. Although the atmosphere is great, that's why we're all here. It's brilliant. But it would be even better if we could get 14, 15, 16,000 every week. Is that price, or is that just the way of the world? That's just what it is.
I think that's a really good question. It's obviously we've got our core supporters, and you guys are all part of that. You know, box holders, 1873 members, and club members. You make up the sort of core 6,000-7,000 that we have here for sure. To try and attract another 8,000-9,000, it is hard, and we clearly can't price it so that you guys are out of pocket. So we do price it as effectively and as cheaply as we can, and as attractive as we can. And we do pick off the odd game where we know that crowds are going to be low and try and incentivise. So we do everything we can. I don't think it's through lack of trying. We monitor the price across the league, and I think we're one of the lowest. So we understand where we are. And I think from my perspective, I'm hugely grateful to you all to committing. You know, that's what's held this club in good financial state for where it is now. Clearly, we want to sell out every game, and you know, we're targeting hopefully 3 games this year. If we can get 4 or 5, brilliant. It makes it better for us. But yeah, it's not through lack of trying.
On the pricing, you sold it for the last few years as freezing the season ticket, but it wasn't really freezing the season ticket because we lost games. And this year we got second tier Europe again. And again, no friendlies before the season. Are we going to get friendlies at home next year to at least start?
Yeah, no, I have heard a few whisperings and mutterings about not being happy with the pre-season. And I actually take all that feedback, and we look at it. I think over the course of the review and the off-season, we made it very clear, well, the coaches made it very clear that we wanted competitive games, and we wanted to go into this season having played some really hard competitive fixtures. We searched around for a long time to try and find someone to come and play us here at Kingsholm. The only way we could do that was to do a reciprocal deal with Munster and Edinburgh, whereby we go to them this season and they come to us next season. So those 2 fixtures are going to be our pre-season fixtures for next year. I couldn't do anything about this season. We were just in a very difficult place where we couldn't find the teams to play us, but I can guarantee they're going to be here for next season. So hopefully that answers your question. I get the price freezing piece. It's difficult because we want to make this business work. We don't want to be bankrupting us, and you guys support us along that journey. So we do thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to have to stop that one there and move on to the next panel. So thank you, Alex, George and Luds. So we now welcome up Don Waldouck, James Lightfoot Brown and Christian Wade. Wadey, over to you. Welcome, firstly. What's it been like for you to come into this environment and start picking up in training, this sort of stuff?
Hello? just testing the mic. No, it's been absolutely incredible. You know, haven't been in the Premiership for 6 years, and then obviously to come back into this setup has been really refreshing for me. You know, a lot of new faces. I'm a little bit older. Before I was quite young and, you know, looking up at the guys who were kind of ahead of me, but now I'm, you know, coming in more as an experienced player. A lot of young guys, a lot of potential, and you know, I've just been really excited to be out there running around and getting my hands on the ball.
And I know you, from speaking with you, that coming back to the Premiership was something you really wanted to do. What do you think you're going to bring to the Premiership this year?
Well, hopefully I could bring some exciting rugby back to the Premiership. You know, I know there's been a lot of hard times, obviously with COVID and you know, salary cap cuts and everything. So it's been, you know, quite a tough time for rugby as a whole and, you know, sports across the world. And I know the Premiership has been doing a lot of stuff to, you know, regain that, you know, a lot more viewers and people coming back to games and stuff. So, you know, I like to think of myself as an exciting player. You know, I've got a top try scorer's record to catch up, you know, try to catch Chris Ashton, so that's going to be fun, especially with the way that we're playing here as well, which is obviously one of the big attractions for me to come here. Like I said as well, you've got the potential of the young players here playing some great rugby, and for me it was a perfect setup for me to come back into, you know, where I'm looking to compete for trophies. So for me, that's where my expectation is, and some of the other new guys coming in as well. So I think you're going to be in for a really good season.
And Saracens is... Just to open out to the floor, see if there are any questions for this panel before we take a short break.
Hi there, hopefully this works. Question for the two coaches. What adjustments are you looking at to the changes to the DuPont rule, i.e. kicking offside at the kick, which seem like might make a big difference counter-attacking and how we defend?
I'll do the simple version, adaptation. So simply, we've got retreat now, obviously. So we're going to be active with our retreat. Last year, we hung in that offside position because we thought it would give us a competitive advantage. So now lads are having to retreat. So that's been a slight shift in how we do things.
One for Wadey, if that's all right. Lots of talk about a recent player from this parish going over to the NFL. You've been a man who's been over there and done it. Any things you've been able to bring from that, perspectives, ways that they do things that you've brought to your game and you can bring to the team?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things really. Just I don't know how much time we've got, but you know, I was over there for 4 years, and you know, from day one there was, you know, so much to take in. You know, the contracts over there are not guaranteed, so day by day you're, you know, trying to put your best foot forward, and you kind of learn to survive by competing every day. So I've got, you know, a bit more of that attitude in me that I've brought over here. And I mean, you know, my biggest passion is for the younger ones. So, you know, with us having a lot of youth coming through, you know, a lot of my experience is just kind of being in around those guys. You know, being available for them to ask me questions. I'm quite a funny guy as well, so when they're feeling down, you know, bring them up, bring their energy. But yeah, you know, one of the biggest things is just around preparation, really. You know, because it's such a competitive environment, you have to learn how to, you know, put yourself in the game without being able to get the reps on the field. So a lot of visualizations and, you know, then when you are out there, just being ready to go at the, you know, the drop of your name, really, well, a number. And then another thing would be just around recovery, how important that is to be able to compete day after day after day at, you know, your best, you know, at the best that you can, really. So, you know, there's a few things, but like I said, I could really talk all day about that. So, if you want, we can catch up at the next game, and I can give you some more stuff.
This is for the coaches, please. Last season, we lost a few matches that were really close. But towards the end of the game, our playing was deteriorating. It's as if we were running out of steam. What's your plan to make sure that we play for 80 minutes and we don't run out of steam in the last 10, 15 minutes?
Great question. I think training hard is incredibly important to that, as we've alluded to there. I think making sure we push the players as much as we can. Obviously, the balance throughout the training week, particularly when we get into games and we're playing every week and we're going for long passages of the year, is to challenge them and progress them physically, but then also make sure that they're fresh enough to perform at the weekend. So I think training hard is going to be the massive thing. And obviously, we've got some incredible people behind the scenes that look after the S&C and the fitness to make sure that we are hitting the markers on a daily basis at training, which is ultimately there to prepare us for the game.
I haven't got a huge amount to add to that. I think that the toughness of training we've had in pre-season has been, like, we worked hard last pre-season. I think we've worked. I think the physicality in training has upped from last season, particularly from a defensive point of view, and in doing so, I think we're more physically conditioned to be able to deal with those 18 minutes. So tougher training, and I think the physicality in training has helped for our conditioning as well.
Last question before we move on to the next group. Wadey, you're someone that takes your recovery very seriously. So to add to Dom's point, how much ownership is then on the player to look after themselves during those rest periods to come back in peak condition?
Yeah, I think it's 100% ownership should be on the player, really. With me, whether we get given a program or recovery protocols, I have my own routine that I do week in, week out. So, with the time off, that was also something that excited me about coming back to the Prem, because there is less games, there is more breaks, and I think there was too many games, if you know what I mean. To be able to perform at the highest level, you can't play all year round. It's just simple science for me, really. So I think with the breaks, it enables me to then take the recovery to another level, and then also it should enable us to also perform at the highest level all year round, which then gives us more exciting games, more relentless performances, more trophies, and etc., etc. So that's how I view that.
Great, thank you. We will say goodbye to this panel now, so thank you very much, chaps, for joining us. Please give a warm welcome to our back-to-back PWR champion duo, Kelsey Jones and Sam Monaghan. Let's start with reflections last season. For the pair of you, probably a little bit bittersweet in the sense of course, back-to-back champions, but you did pick up injuries on the way. So, Kelsey, let's start with you. How did your last season go, firstly, and how important is then that support role that you took on in the lead up to that final?
Starting with the hard questions there. Season was brilliant. Obviously got really good wins under our belt the start of the season. Followed that through towards the end, before the business end of the season. So, absolutely brilliant on that sense. Took a little break, obviously, for the Six Nations. Sadly got injured in that a little bit as well. Came back for first game with PWR again against Loughborough. And sadly, like you say, got an ACL injury, which seen me out, which, in my opinion, business end of rugby is obviously the best part of rugby and what you want to play for. So that season for me is definitely bittersweet. Like I say, beginning of that season was amazing, and then to end it on such a low, I think I had some of my highest highs and then the lowest lows in last season. So really, really tough. But like you say, that switch of mindset then, that's my realisation, that's my reality, and it was what it was. And week of the final, had my surgery, and there was no doubt I was heading down to Exeter to support the girls to try and get that second title again. So, flip a mindset, but wouldn't have it any other way, going just down to support the girls and see them get that win. So, yeah.
Can I just say something? So we've both done our ACLs, and I had my ACL surgery 2.5 weeks after Kelsey. Bear in mind, she had her surgery 5 days before the final. She was on that bus down to the final. 5 days after my surgery, I still couldn't get out of bed. So honestly, I have the utmost respect for this girl and what she put, the brave face she put on that day. And that changing room was fucking slippy as well, so...
And I guess you're both sharing that rehab journey together. How's it getting on?
Look, I couldn't imagine doing this alone. Like, it's a really, really dark place. I don't think there's many other people I could do it with. We've Kelsey and another girl, Lizzie. She did her ACL out here against Ealing. So the three of us, we push each other every day. We go through the lows and highs together. But yeah, I think there's no other two people I'd rather do it with.
The worst part about it, actually, is we're so competitive that we're looking over across the gym and being like, why is she allowed to do that and I'm not? And so we're constantly like checking with our physios, being like, can I do that yet? Or like constantly on to each other. But yeah, no, like Sammy said, I think bigger picture as well of things. Not sure if many of you know, but the Women's Six Nations, obviously, Women's World Cup will be coming to England next year. So if it was going to happen, I think, fortunately, it happened when it did. And do you know what? As hard as it like sounds to say this, but if it was going to happen, at least it happened to all three of us at the same time. And like you say, that we've got each other for that. Hopefully push back for Six Nations and, get ready for that World Cup in the following year.
Let's delve into camp then. Obviously, season's underway. How are the girls feeling? 3 times in a row is on the cards. Confident?
Yeah, I'll take this. Yeah, look, I'm sure much of you know, I think we've got 29 internationals. Yeah. So Linny and Django are doing an amazing job of managing this squad throughout not just the PWR season, but these games building up into it as well. And a massive pillar, as the boys said earlier, is the academy for them. It's our pathway at Gloucester Hartpury. So Hartpury College leading up into Hartpury University, and then Gloucester Hartpury. So there was 10 debutants on Sunday playing against Exeter in the PWR series, Power Up series. So that's a massive fundamental part for us. And also them core club girls that we have, your Rachel Lunds, Catherine Buggy, Bianca Blackburn, thank you, who throughout this is a solid rock. So without them girls, this wouldn't be possible. And we play a different role now, which again, like leading the team off field, having them younger players, them conversations. Steph Else is a great example of someone who's come through the pathway. So, she's gotten the chance to train and play with us throughout the season, looking up to Zoe Aldercroft, someone she would have looked up to as they're both from Scarborough. And she captained her first game for Gloucester Hartpury there on Sunday. And even in the PWR final, we'd 4 of them Bucks players playing: Pip Hendy, Amy Dale, Millie Hyatt, and Steph Else. So, that's a massive part of where this team is going and the foundation of where we're coming from.
And as you say, that pathway this season is probably more important than ever, isn't it? Because of the World Cup, the season's going to be condensed. You're going to need every player in that squad if you are to go on to be back to back to back.
Back to back to back. We have got an extra word we add on the end of that, but I'm not going to say it in front of everyone. No, definitely, like that is absolutely huge for us. And like you say, obviously the PWR league actually starts when a few of our girls are still in the WXV tournament at the end. So it's super important, that pathway that we have to build up and be able to blood these girls through in the red jersey. And really exciting, obviously, that we also get those girls back. So I think... interesting question. Obviously, you asked earlier about the men and England, taking over the main contracts and how that works. So it's actually similar in the Women's League, where England, with the English players, actually get precedent and say over what happens to them. So it'll be interesting because I know minutes will probably be managed and things. So actually this year, more than ever, seeing that pathway and giving these girls opportunities is going to be huge and absolutely vital come that business end of the season before the Six Nations.
You can also see in training the last couple of years, like, it's gotten so much spicier. People fighting for shirts. There's more depth in the squad. It'll ultimately make us a better squad in the end. So it's really class to see.
And this season there'll be more Gloucester Hartpury games at Kingsholm than ever before. The relationship that you girls are building with Cherry and White Faithful is really growing, and you feel the impact of that as well.
Oh my gosh, if we could be shed heads every week, that's where we'll be on game days, guys. Now that we're not playing, we're going to be in that shed with you all. No, absolutely. I think as soon as we started to play games here, we could feel like, for me, it's the atmosphere you guys bring. Like, it's absolutely immense. And I think as much as we love playing at Hartpury, you don't get that same feeling that you get at Kingsholm Stadium. And it is the home of rugby in Gloucester. And ultimately, that's where we want to be playing. So, like, super exciting to see, like, so many games being able to be played there. And, yeah, absolutely. The atmosphere that we bring, that you guys bring, we really feel that in the warm-up, in the build-up to the game, you know, girls on the bench feeling that energy, like cheering the girls on the pitch at the time. It really, really is something special, and you know, we don't lose that feeling every time we hear it, so it's truly amazing.
Has anyone got any questions they like for Sam and Kelsey?
Hi. Going back a little while, there was quite a bit of publicity about...
Sorry, just to give you some insight, there were 2 mics handed out.
Oh, right, sorry.
I was looking at a gentleman and
like my voice was coming out of...
He's got a high voice.
See, my ventriloquism takes over. Yeah, going back a little while, there was some publicity regarding women's soccer that all the boots that they were wearing were designed for men and women run differently, and it was causing a lot of ACL injuries. Is that something that could be causing you problems, or are your boots designed for women?
It's actually really, really interesting. So as rubbish as it is, obviously all these ACLs are actually happening, but what it's actually caused is people to actually look into it a little bit more. So, but what's really interesting is that recently we've had people come in with us, haven't we, and actually like barefoot, like running across a mat, and they're looking at our foot patterns, and they're looking at like actually designing a specific boot, like you say, because males are so different to female. You know, it's really, really interesting. So I know work is going on behind the scenes to see if that is an impact, but right now probably haven't got the answers. But yeah, lots of different elements that could go into that. Haven't got the exact answer for you on that, but yeah, it's definitely being looked into as well, which is really interesting.
I was going to ask exactly the same question.
I was lucky enough to speak to Mo and Zoe before the semi-final last year, and one of the things we kind of touched on was how successful you guys were last year, the back-to-back, and, well, hopefully the back-to-back at that point. And I was saying, well, the only thing to go is to go unbeaten. Now, obviously, that's incredibly hard. You nearly did it last year. Is that within the group, is that the target, to go unbeaten in the league and to do something no other team has ever done before?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about being unbeaten last year. Our focus for this year is to finish top 2 so we can play here, get a home semi-final. As Cal said, it's like having that 16th player on the pitch, especially when someone shanks a kick. But to be honest, though, I think that Sarries game completely changed how we were playing, though, in the build-up to that. Not that we were cocky or overly confident, but you look at yourself in a different way when you lose. So I think that was a stepping stone into the success of going back-to-back. You know, like, we braved that storm together. We looked at ourselves harder than we ever have before. It is going to be a tough season, especially with loads of rotation. It's hard. We're going to finish the finals the 17th? Earlier before the Six Nations, so we're really dependent on that squad rotation, you know, getting them younger players in and more game time, you know, resting, as Cal said as well, them international players, because they've had such big tournaments back to back. But yeah, I think we just focus 1 week at a time. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, you know, focus just what's in front of us, and then inevitably good will come in the end.
I went down to Exeter for the final. What was it that changed? Because you were really quite outplayed, or Bristol played really well, to be fair, for the first half. But second half, you were a different team. Was it just a good talking to? I know you had to leave early, but yeah, what changed everything?
Yeah, well, I was actually on the bench at that point, so I couldn't walk in, but. When the girls said they first went in, it was a bit of a quiet dressing room. Everyone was kind of looking like, you know, what's happening. I know from the start of that game, you know, we had a few pens, which we talked about before the game. Like that's how Bristol are going to get into this game. You know, penalty, they'll kick it to the corner, they'll use their driving maul. So our discipline was massive going into that game, and we'd given away too many penalties. So we really had to cut that out, be very disciplined. And I believe, from what I'm told, that Linny turned to Zoe, and she just had this warrior face on. You could see her, like she was gurning, her eyes were just like going for it, and Linny was just like, look at that warrior, and everyone looked at Zoe, and like I think this energy just flew around the room, as Zoe and Mo do, that captain this team so well. Even getting goosebumps now talking about it, but you can just, the way they lead, they lead from the front, and her energy she was giving out in that room, they were like, we've got 40 minutes left. We've got to do everything we can. It's a hot day, but we've got so much work to get through. And I think we just got into a flow of a game. There was a point in the season last year where it got really hard. I think it was Ealing away. We'd almost lost that game as well. And we just didn't enjoy it as much as, and we found like the more we enjoy it, the better we play, the more we buzz off each other, the more our backs light up. So I think they just started to enjoy it. They started enjoying that physical dominance of the game, you know, them hard hits, big tackles, and you could just see the girls were just buzzing off each other by the end of it. But I'd no doubt they were going to finish it off. Kate Williams was she had an amazing turnover that really switched the momentum of the game. We got it to the corner, we could start building. But yeah, the momentum really switched after half-time, didn't it?
I was going to say, to be fair, I think it all comes back, as we know, in rugby, it's all about momentum. If you've got it, you sort of get on that flow. And obviously that first half, like you say, Bristol were definitely outplaying us. So I think for that, it was definitely a mental switch to be like, you know, we're not here to mess around. Like, they're here to play. We need to step up against that now. And yeah, that turnover, I remember it. You know, so I think it was Tat chopped. Kate was straight on ball, and sort of like, obviously different perspective for myself, I wasn't on the pitch, but I think from that moment you could just see that momentum then, and that slowly building and putting pressure straight back on them. And I definitely think that was a changing point in the game. But sorry, I just wanted to say, just going back to speaking about Zoe, just to give you a bit of context. So Zoe had actually been up all night before that game, being sick, and she was very, very unwell. And on the way down, obviously I wasn't on the bus, but on the way down, she was laying at the back of the bus sleeping, absolutely knackered because she hadn't got any sleep from being sick all night. So that when you stopped off at the services, Lynn, you know, went to check in on her and, you know, are you okay? And she turned around and she said, Linny, that is the first and the last time you ask me that today. So just to talk about Warriors, you know, and what we're about as a squad, on field and off field, like, you know, we all stick in it for each other, and, you know, we wouldn't want it any other way. And Zoe was a proper warrior that day. So I think the reason why that, you know, mindset changed and actually was like, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for each other, and we're doing it for everyone that's come down to support us as well. So that was a nice little switch. I think everyone looking at Zoe, bless her, she was knackered, and, you know, she played the full 80 minutes. There was no way she was being taken off that day. So yeah, that is really what we're about. You know, we're going to dig in deep for each other, and I think that really was present in that final day.
Thank you very much for joining us. And if you haven't already, please do come down and catch these girls in action at Kingsholm this season. It's a massive year for women's rugby at the Rugby World Cup next year. So thank you very much for joining us. That does bring the evening to a close. We've got about 20 minutes on the bar, I think.